be prepared for some attacks, but you will have some amazing counter chances. So till then we start, guys. Do let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me, if everything is fine, and then we can begin. Is there an audio problem, guys? I think there might be an audio problem. I will check it out. Hi, Harshal. Guys, do let me know if you can hear me, or is there some audio problem? I will fix it. Great. If you can hear me, then that's perfect. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes, and until then we start. So basically, guys, French defense is a very interesting opening, and this will enable you to kind of go for the win, even as black. As we know, white moves first, and that means that he will always have an edge. But even with black, you can fight for the advantage, and this will be an example on how to do that. So we look at two games. One will be a game of mine, which I played, and one will look at some analysis, which जयकांत वेल ऐसा नहीं है एक्चुअली. इट्स जस्ट कि हम काफ़ी चीज़ें और कर रहे थे, फन चीज़ें कर रहे थे, तो फ्रेंच डिफेंस थोड़ा रह गया. आई हैड प्रिपेयर्ड दिस अ लॉन्ग वे अगो. हाय प्रियांक. Guys, can you again confirm if everything is okay, if you can hear me and if you can see me? If everything is fine, then I will begin. नहीं जयकांत, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. इट्स जस्ट कि थोड़ा सा वो आइस का इशू है, तो थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना पड़ता है. ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं है अभी. Yeah, Harshal, Night Off would be even easier for me because I actually play the Night Off myself. I've been playing it for many years. So definitely I can do that, and that would definitely be up on the list next. However, it will take a long while for you to kind of grasp all the variations, even for the French defense actually. Okay, thank you for letting me know, Priyank, if everything is fine. So first of all, I'll start with the starting moves. So E4. Now, as you know, guys, एक video मैंने करी हुई है, which one should you choose, E4 or D4? And if somebody is playing E4, usually they are well prepared for the variations. Shiva Krishna, close positions, I think French defense is a close structure, and that will also help you to understand. In close structures, I think first of all the knights kind of gain importance more than the bishop sometimes, and also the wings become important. So both sides will probably have their wings where they're playing on, and this structure will kind of help you understand that as well. So now, guys, if you have already, as I mentioned, that E4 is for players who are not scared, who are ready to remember lots of theory, who prefer dynamic positions more than static positions. And by playing the French defense, we are allowing them to do that. So, for example, let's say if I play E5, now this will be a very solid system, and it won't, let's say, allow your opponent to go for some sort of dynamic play right from the opening unless they sacrifice a pawn or something. But with the French, similar to the Sicilian, you're already burning your boats, you're burning your bridges a little bit, because this is a very dynamic way to play. And with this, you have to be ready to face some sort of attack, but you will definitely have your counter chances, and we'll try to understand. Shiva Krishna, I think, of course, if you prefer the bishops, I think French defense seems like a bad choice, especially because the common problem in the French defense is the bishop on c8 for black, and you kind of feel that it's very passive. But the thing is, if you can manage to get rid of this bishop for any of your opponent minor pieces, then this is a very let's say amazing opening for black, because this is the only bad piece. Now usually when we kind of because black has kind of a lot of play on the queen side, and if you can get rid of this bishop, then you will have absolutely no problems in the entire game. So as long as you manage to get rid of this bishop without, let's say, getting checkmated, I think black has a great play. So guys, now we'll try to understand it one by one. So now white's main move is d4, and I don't understand any other move here because it makes a lot of sense to play the pawn to d4. And now we play d5. So you can say we have two equal pawns in the center, but the difference lies in the e pawns. As you can see, white has its pawn on e4 and we have it passively on e6. So इसका मतलब यही रहेगा कि मतलब हमारे जो pawns हैं वो थोड़े से सेंटर में वाइट के पास स्पेस रहेगी. सो वाइट विल हैव स्लाइट स्पेस एडवांटेज इन द सेंटर बिकॉज his pawn can mostly land on the square e5. This will be the structure you will be facing mostly, and in this case you can see white has more space advantage on the king side, and because black will counteract on the queen side, he will have more space on the queen side. So this tells us which side both sides will be playing on. White will be playing on the king side and black will be playing on the queen side, and this way you will try to have your own chances. Yeah, Shivakrishna, I think it can sometimes feel that in close positions you don't have many active moves, but that's where maneuvering comes into play. If let's say you can maneuver your pieces to the right squares, then you can be prepared for any sort of pawn break, and I think maneuvering is also important in this case. So knowing maneuvering can definitely help you play close positions, and I think today's video will also help you a little bit to kind of understand the plans. Now there are many moves for white here, guys. So white के पास बहुत choices हैं. So first is of course e5, but this is not played nowadays too often. Jaykant, is the video freezing, guys? Guys, you let me know if the video is freezing. So guys, until then I'll continue. So what happens is that mostly you will get this structure, and one of the important moves for white is e5, but this is not played so often nowadays. And the main moves here nowadays have been somehow knight c3 and knight d2. Now knight d2 is a very solid way for white to play, and here I would recommend the move c5, but this we will have a look at some other point of time because this is not very dangerous for black. I mean, there is a lot of theory, but this is considered to be a solid way for white to play, and it feels like players who want to avoid theory will actually go for knight d2. So we will definitely have a look at this some other time. But one of the most dangerous ways for white to play is knight to c3, and this is a very, very aggressive way for white to play. If your opponent plays this, you can be rest assured he knows a lot of theory and he is ready to battle full on, and he's not scared of you at all. So now this is the most important system, and I have personally also played a few games here, and I'm going to help you understand the concepts and the plans with the help of my games and also some analysis. Now, I understood this opening with the help of the DVD by Kazim Danov on the French defense, and I have also analyzed by myself and looked at some games, and I've also learned the French defense from an international master last year, so I have some understanding of the opening and I'll try to help you understand it. Video is lagging. Guys, if it continues, do let me know. I think there should be no issues as such, but if there is any more issue, you can let me know, guys. So now guys, I think we'll start with the black's move, and the black move here is knight to f6. So you can see there is a pawn on e4 and black is threatening to capture it. Now here white has two moves which basically transpose into different sort of openings, and we're going to look at one game in each of those, and that way we'll try to understand which is the best for us. So first we will look at the game which is e5, which looks like the most logical move here because you have placed your knight to f6 and I am going to attack it, and this is the most logical move in the position, I feel. But now we get a knight to d7 and the idea is, before white could play e5, we have already gotten this passive knight to d7 to the queen side where it can be used for active play. So we have kind of given up on the king side, but we have the queen side in our eyesight and we're going to focus on the queen side. Now white plays the move f4 and he is going to create this bind. You can see white's pieces, they will be pointing towards the king side here definitely, and black needs to be very careful of castling on the king side unless he has some clear reason to do so. So now c5, you cannot wait with this move, guys. You have to hurry and play c5. This is the number one move black has to play. After all, you can see that this is the base of the pawn chain. This pawn chain that is going to cramp black. The pawn chain is starting at d4 right now, and if you can exchange it, if you can exchange this pawn, then this will weaken white's center, and c5 makes a lot of sense. Yes, Jaykant, bishop b4 bhi ho sakta hai. That would be another opening. I am not going to go into that right now, but that is, I think, hotshot theory nowadays, and we're not going to go into that right now. So what I personally understand well, and what I feel is a decent way for black to play, because you can understand it easily, I think I'm going to teach you that. But yes, this is definitely possible here, guys. And here white often plays e5 and c5, a3, takes, and we reach this sort of structure. But the structure will be similar regardless of whether you play bishop b4 or not. So after e5, knight f6, not this, after knight f6, e5, knight d7, f4 and c5. So we are already attacking the pawn on d4, and knight f3, knight c6. So you can see black's pieces are ready on the queen side and putting pressure on the pawn on d4. Now bishop e3. Now this is the, let's say, the classical position in the French defense. Here black has many options, and one of the options is actually to play a6. Now this is a very classic option. It makes a lot of sense because you're trying to push b5 and playing on the queen side. And here usually the play will go something like this, and then white will go knight d1, knight f2, and this will be a very interesting struggle. Another way to play here is bishop e7. Now this kind of prepares kingside castling, and f6. Now this will be another strategy which black can employ, and Adhiban has played some games here, and I have also understood the system, but I think there's a more interesting way to play here, and that would be the way to play like I did, and that would be to start with c takes d4. Now you exchange the pawn chain, the pawns on d4 and c5, and now there are many ways to play here. You can play moves like bishop c5, but now you play queen to b6, and this is a very, very interesting system to play. This is kind of known as the Nakamura system because Nakamura plays it a lot, and I kind of saw this for the first time in the DVD by Kazim Danov. But since then I've played it at least three or four games, and I've had a lot of fun playing this, because this kind of gives black amazing chances. And I'm also going to show you, in fact I might even show you 2 games here because this is so much fun to play. Yeah, Harshal, castle queenside is definitely possible in these systems, but the problem is, as of now, it's difficult to get this bishop into play. So yes, definitely, if let's say black could remove his pieces, he could play knight c5, bishop d7. Yes, it could be possible, but as of now, you're focusing yourself on the pawn on b2, and this is very interesting. So now the best move for white is queen d2. If white spends time playing rook b1 or something, I think black is already completely fine here, and there can be many moves you can play. I think something like knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and bishop c5. I think black has already equalized, and this does not feel like to be a threatening way. Rook b1 cannot be the refutation of this variation, which Nakamura has preferred on many occasions. So now queen d2. Okay, I think the video just froze for a moment. Guys, you let me know if there was some issue with the video. You can let me know. Hi Harsh, of course I do remember you. You were pretty good at Among Us as well. Yes, we will play Among Us, but actually Pernali is busy with some Unacademy work right now, so right now we cannot do that, but we will do that soon. Yeah, Jaykant, I think all top players have played this. Actually, even Giri came up with a course recently on the French defense, and there are many players who have preferred this. So now guys, in this position, white plays queen d2, and he tells black that he's not really afraid of black capturing the pawn, and he will have some amazing counterplay. But black does not run away. He captures the pawn, and now rook b1 and queen a3. Now you can see the struggle because black has captured this pawn, and it is a crucial pawn because it isolates white's remaining pawns. So if let's say you could magically remove the queens off the board, I think black would already be winning because he's a pawn up and he has the better pawn structure. So in this case, it's white's responsibility to go for the attack and to prove that his attack is successful. However, of course, it is enough compensation for white, and usually the lines are very sharp and it's a lot of fun to play. So after queen a3, the main line for white and the move that my opponent played was knight d to b5. And actually, there are many moves here. For example, I will also kind of come up with another game. I'm just going to open it, and till then you can ask me a couple of questions and we will look at that game as well. I'm going to show you two games in this line. One was against a player from Italy. She was, I think her name was Miracola. Okay, that's an interesting name. And I managed to defeat her in 2017, I think. And also I played this against an international master and Himal Gusain, and I was completely winning. Even though the game ended in a draw, I think I was completely winning in that game. So we're going to look at these two games now. I'm just going to open up the international master game as well, because originally I thought one game would be enough, but why not? We can have a look at two games as well. Just a moment, guys. Okay, so I have the game, I think. Yes. Yeah, Harshal, C file is open, and I think that is a very important element, because black has the C file open and he can kind of use it to pressure white on the king side, on the queen side, sorry. But it also kind of weakens some square, like the square on c7, like the square on d6, and it can also give white some attacking chances. Pawan, okay, thanks for letting me know. I am not so sure why it's freezing, because the internet connection should be fine. It might be something with the OBS. I will just check it. Just a moment. Okay. Okay, guys. So again, if it freezes again, guys, do let me know. I have kind of removed the image here. I think too many elements on the OBS also kind of caused some lag for me. So hopefully this helps. So guys, now after queen a3, here there are two moves actually. So the best move was played by my international master opponent Himal Gusain, and he played the move bishop b5 here. Now this is the main line, and however, what my opponent played, Miracola from Italy, she played knight d b5. Now here you can see knight is headed to c7, and that would be a very devastating for black, and the queen is also attacked. So black response is forced, queen a5, and now she played the tactic knight takes d5 and you can see the queen is attacked. So she kind of expected to win an exchange here, and that does make a lot of sense, because now black's response is forced. He has to capture the queen, which I did. Now bishop takes. Now here king takes was even slightly better, I think, because now that the queens have been exchanged, I think the king is not really weak on d2, but she captured with the bishop. And now I just capture on d5. I am not really afraid of giving up the exchange. And okay, Arif, thanks for letting me know. I think it's more to do with the fact that I had a few more elements on the screen. I think it kind of irritates the OBS a little bit. Hopefully it should be fine now. Do let me know if the issue is still there, guys. So now after ed5, knight c7, king d8 and knight a8. Now this is the position my opponent was aiming for, but unfortunately she did not realize that this knight is trapped. And even if she wins a pawn for it, I think with the two bishops and with, let's say, the extra pawns, I have amazing play here, because I will win the knight. And usually, as you know, two pieces are much stronger than a rook and a pawn, and that's why this position is better for black. And after b6, bishop d3, bishop b7, now the knight is already falling, so she just captured it for a pawn. And after bishop f5, bishop c5, I'm already stopping white from castling as well. And now you can see how the king would have been better on d2. So guys, this way I have amazing play here. And after a4, g6, bishop d3, king c7, king d1. So she's trying to bring the rook into play. Rook a8, attacking the pawn on a4, bishop b5, knight a5, rook e1, and knight e8. Now this is an interesting move, because the knight on d7 was attacked, and now the knight will go to e6 and maybe even d4, and it will have some amazing play there. So guys, you can understand already how dynamic the opening is. And of course, if you have any questions, you can keep asking me in the chat and I will continue with the game. So now white panicked and she made a mistake and I just captured back bishop e8 and I just played bishop c6. So I'm not really afraid of giving up this pawn. Bishop takes f7, rook takes a4, g3, king d8, king e2, king e7, bishop g8. You can look at this bishop, how passive it is here. And after bishop d7, bishop takes d5. Now, this is a very important moment. And what do you think is the best move for here, for black guys? This is black to play. And you can see how you have the two bishops. You have the active rook. White's king is weak because you can see how there are diagonals and checks coming up. So what do you think black should play here, guys? My opponent has not played so well because she was rated around 1800 on the FIDE rating list and she did make a few mistakes. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 moves from now, my opponent resigned. So you can imagine how bad her position is. And what do you think black should play here, guys? It's black to play. You have to notice the important elements here. After all, the two bishops are an important force. You can see there are a lot of diagonals open towards the king. And this is very, very difficult for the white king. And white's rooks are helpless because they cannot really, they will have to sacrifice themselves for the exchange. Jaykant, you can send me the link and I will have a look at it. But trust me, the games I will show will be very, very interesting as well. So you will definitely not miss on that. Okay, Pavan says knight to e6. Now knight to e6 is definitely possible. I think black is definitely better here. But I think maybe he can play the move c3. And he does control the knight a little bit as of now. I think there might be something better here, Pavan. Okay, Harshal says bishop b5. Now that makes a lot of sense if the bishop was not hanging. So that is the problem, Harshal. The bishop is just hanging for free. Otherwise, it would have been an excellent move and white would be stuck. So you found the correct concept. You just have to find the different path to attack the white king. Yeah, Siddharth, this is definitely, even right now, a clustered position. You can see white has this amazing pawn chain. He has the strong bishop. He has the, let's say, the extra kind of rook. But because of dynamic play, black has enough counterplay. In fact, he has more than enough counterplay right now. So if you play the French, you have to be ready for taking some risks, because you usually with black, you're playing for some passive position. At the start, you're trying to equalize, defend, but with the French, you're all in and you don't mind going for the attack. You will completely push your pawns on the queen side, bring your pieces on the queen side, and it's up to white to kind of break through on the king side. If he does, well, he might win. If he doesn't, well, we would win. So that is the trade-off you get by playing French. Yes, Shiva Krishna and Harshal, I think, Harshal, you also mean bishop g4, I think, and not bishop b4. So this is the move that I played, guys, is absolutely correct. Now my opponent played king to f1, and now there is a very clever move for black here, and after that, white is lost. So what do you think is the best move here, guys? This is another moment for you. You have to find the best move for black. Pavan, if you mean rook b4 in this position, I think I would not like to exchange rooks, because that will basically exchange my only main mating piece. I think you also mean bishop g4, because bishop b4 is possible on the other hand. But again, I think I like this diagonal better than this diagonal, because the bishop on c5 is well protected by the pawn, and this makes it very solid and has a solid anchor in the position. So I think the bishop on c5 is well placed. And after bishop to g4, king f1, now there is a very clever move. Yes, Arif, you're absolutely correct. So Jaykant, मैं लीचेस अभी खोलना नहीं चाहता because lag के चक्कर पड़ सकते हैं. If you have a game, you can send it to me on Leeches, and what I'll do is next time when I cover the French defense, I will kind of include that game as well. That can be the better way to do things so that there's no lag. And yes, Shiva Krishna, you are absolutely correct. Rook to d4. So attacking the bishop and also preparing rook d2 and covering up the white king completely is the correct way to do things here. And after bishop to g2, which is the best move in the position for white, it still doesn't work. we play rook to d2, and you can see how active black's pieces are, and this looks deadly for white. Now here white played rook to a1, and I played the move b5 to kind of, let's say, play something like bishop to e6 and bishop to c4, and that would be game over. So after h3, I played bishop to e6, and now my threat is bishop to c4, and my opponent realized that she might lose this, and she played the move bishop to e4. Now this is up to you guys. What do you think is the winning move for black here? After this, my opponent resigned. It's black to play and win, guys. Jaykant, I can have a look at it, but unfortunately I won't be able to put it into the laptop from the phone, and then I cannot really show the game, and I'll have to feed the moves one by one, and it'll be very difficult to do that, I think. And I also kind of look at the chat from the phone, so it's kind of difficult. I will definitely look at the game, Jaykant, next time, because I am going to cover it even more, so don't worry about that. Yes, Harshal, rook f2 is definitely possible, and after king g1, I think you can capture on c2, or you can capture on f4, but I think there is a better move here which wins on the spot. Yeah, Shiva Krishna, rook f2 is good, but there is another move here which wins on the spot. Notice white's last move, and what is the drawback behind that last move? So you have to figure out the drawback. With white's last move, bishop to e4, if you play bishop c4, this is white's idea. But what has white missed here? What is the drawback behind bishop to e4? Pavan, this works. This works. I think after this, you can play rook f2, king g1, rook takes c2, and then next move I will capture the bishop. But there is even quicker win. There is a quicker win here. Yes, Shiva Krishna, you're absolutely correct. Bishop h3 just wins on the spot because there is nothing left in the game, and the king has no squares. The bishop has to go back, and then it will be mate. This was a very interesting game for me because this was the first game ever that I played in the French defense, and I managed to win so convincingly that I love this variation. And now we will look at the game that I played in the same variation against the international master, and I was completely winning, and how complicated that game was will make it a lot more fun to understand. We'll start from the beginning just to kind of repeat the moves. Yes, Pavan, you're absolutely correct. Yes. Okay, yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, Harshal, bishop h3. Yes, Arif, bishop h3. So that, yes, c4, bishop c4 was possible. But again, bishop h3 just wins on the spot. So I think that is just faster. Now we look at another game. I think in this case, my opponent did not play so well. So it becomes a bit, let's say, easy to play, and looks like it was all easy. But now I played this against an international master who was already 2400, so this will be much more fun this time. d5, knight c3, now knight to f6, e5, not this, e5, knight d7, f4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e3. Now we take on the pawn, knight takes, and now queen to b6, queen to d2, queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3. Now this is all theory, and it looks like a lot to remember, guys, but I think all these moves are almost forced and they do not look so complicated. You just have to play a game or two, and then you will remember these variations, I think. And once you reach here, so now my international master opponent Himal Gusain, he played the move bishop to b5. Now this is the main line, and here black simply responds by capturing on d4 because the knight was attacked. Bishop takes d4, and now you play a6, and you kind of challenge the bishop and you ask the bishop what it wants to do. And in this position, bishop takes d7 is the main move, and after bishop takes d7, it will kind of transpose to the game. In the game, my opponent played rook b3, and I played the move queen to e7, and after bishop takes d7, I knew the opening theory, but I think here queen takes d7 was also possible. But because I had already prepared the opening theory, I just went for bishop takes d7, and that way I already knew what to play in the future. So we kind of revise this a little bit. So after you play bishop to b5, my previous opponent played this, bishop to b5, and knight takes d4 because the knight is attacked. You can see how the knight is attacked. Knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, a6 attacking the bishop. Now bishop captures. We can kind of do this in this move order, let's say, but I think the best move here is bishop takes d7, bishop takes d7, rook b3, queen e7, and rook takes b7. Now this is the position that we reached. And this is a very important break point in the French defense. And now black has many choices. Yes, Pawan, bishop b5 is annoying, and that's why we try to exchange this bishop, because it kind of pins our knight. And this is the position. Now we'll try to understand the elements in this position, guys, first of all. So now you have to understand, first of all, that black has a solid pawn structure. All these pawns are very solid, and this pawn looks weak, but it cannot be attacked. And white's pawns are very broken. They look horrible. However, black's king is still in the center. So it's a battle of dynamism versus structure. And in this case, white is definitely the one who will probably get to attack first. But if you manage to ward off the attack, if you manage to play good moves in the next, let's say, 5 moves, then black will definitely have amazing chances, because you can see in the end game, white is not placed well here with all these weaknesses, and it will be very easy for black to attack, and that is exactly what happened in the game. So now I played rook c8. Now this is a very logical move to kind of put pressure on the c file, and my opponent just castled. And now you kind of want to develop the bishop, but the queen is kind of, let's say, blocking it. So you play queen a3 with the idea of bishop c5. So if I can exchange these bishops, let's say white plays something random, h3, I play bishop c5, bishop takes, queen takes, king moves, and I already win the knight. So you can imagine how easy it can be for black if white goes wrong. And that is the idea of queen a3, to play bishop c5. And now white has to decide what to do. If he plays rook b3, we can play queen a5. And if he plays bishop b6, there is just bishop c5, and this way black saves his queen. And in fact, he has a better position here. Black is, I think, almost winning in this position with white's weak pawns here. So that's why I think here, after let's say queen to a3, my opponent played f5. Now this is a very important moment, and I wasn't sure about what to do, but bishop c5 felt like a very logical move, and my opponent played knight e2. Now this is the most important moment in the game. Yes, Pawan, absolutely correct. Black hasn't even developed yet, but somehow he has an amazing pawn structure, and he has long-term chances in this position. So now he has kind of protected the bishop. He has moved the knight from harm's way, and now it's black to play, guys. So what do you think black should play here? It's your move. Just try to guess the move, try to find the best move, and we'll try to find the best move together here. I did manage to find the best move, and there's only one good move for black here, but try to find it. Let's see who can find the correct move. So what do you think is the best move here, guys? Because black's king is the only problem, and you cannot really castle here because of rook takes d7. The bishop is just hanging, so you have to come up with something else here. So what do you think, guys? What should black play here? Okay, so both of you takes bishop to c6. Now, bishop to c6 would have been a decent move, preparing to castle, but I think the problem is rook b3, and now it looks a bit problematic because the queen has no decent squares. It has to protect the bishop, so you have to capture here, and now knight takes d4, queen c5, and now f takes e6, and after, you can see already e6 is kind of weak. You capture here, and now rook c3, and you can see how black's position is falling apart. The king is still in the center. He cannot castle now, and queen g5 is coming, and knight e6 is coming, and this is, I think, already lost for black. So this is not the correct move here. It was a decent try, I think, Bishop c6 is the logical move, but you have to find out something else. This is a difficult moment here, guys. Okay, bishop to b5. Now this looks like a logical move, and it would again work, but I think the problem is f takes e6, and here you have to capture. But the problem now is queen to g5, and guys, you can see how difficult it is because all white pieces are around black's king, and this might not end well for black. I think the problem is that black's pieces, the rook is stuck on h8, the rook is stuck on c8, the queen is on a3, and they're not really coordinated somehow, and black's king is kind of left alone, and I think this would turn out very badly for black. Arif and Pawan, that was an interesting suggestion, but the problem is tactically it does not work. Positionally it was a great move, I think. So guys, I'm going to give you this moment because this is not so easy, and I did myself think for 30 minutes to come up with the correct solution here, and I thought for many moves. I also thought bishop d4, knight d4, queen c5, but now just king h1, and this looks like a great position for white because the knight on d4 protects the pawn on c2, and I still cannot castle because the bishop is hanging. So here the best move, unfortunately, is e takes f5, and this looks a bit scary. Also h6 does not work because of move like rook f3, and you can see how again this will be very difficult. So e takes f5, guys, is kind of the best move here because you don't want white to capture and open up the f file when both white rooks are already active. Yes, Shiva Krishna, it is, but you will soon see how you can turn the tide, because it looks like black is suffering and he has to come up with the best moves. But you also have to know that you can pretty much remember most of this at home. It is all theory, and if you manage to solve the opening problems, then you will see how white suffers, and you will understand in this game how my opponent also suffered. So now I played the move e takes f5, which is the best move, and my opponent played queen g5. Now this looks very threatening, so I played the move g6, and here is where my opponent played the move queen to f6, and he expected me to kind of suffer here because the queen is attacking the rook, the queen is also attacking f7, e6 is coming, rook takes d7 is coming, and this looks absolutely lost for black. But there is a very clever move here, guys. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the move for black here, guys? What do you think black should play? Try to come up with the best move here. This is the crucial moment here, guys. If you find this move, black is much better. And if you don't find it, black is just lost. So this is the kind of stakes we are dealing with. And this is a very important moment. Very, very important moment, guys. Guys, if you're watching, do like the stream so that more people can join us and they can also benefit from this. Okay. Guys, so what do you think is the move for black here? This will involve some tactics, but it does solve all black's problems. And after this move, black is just clearly better. He's almost winning actually after this move. It might look amazing, but it is possible. Okay, Shiva Krishna thinks it's bishop takes d4. Now this is also possible, but I think after this you will still have to come up with the move that I played in the game. So we'll focus on the move that I played. And yes, Pawan also says the same. Harshal, actually, castle is the move here. It is the move. I played castling here, and the problem is that after rook takes d7, you play the move bishop takes d4, knight takes d4, and queen e3 check, and king h1, queen takes d4. And I think in this position, because white cannot play e5, e6 because of the pin, black is just clearly better. And now you realize how weak these pawns are, and black is just completely winning here. So that's why my opponent also was in shock that I just castled, and he was an international master. So he was definitely no piece of cake. Okay, so I think we look at Shiva Krishna's suggestion as well. Queen e3, king h1. But now Shiva Krishna, you cannot really capture here because of queen takes h8. So you still have to castle in this position. So this is again kind of the same thing. So it is better to kind of just not capture and just play castles immediately. That way the knight on e2 still stays passive. So that is the idea. Yes, Pavan, that is also possible. Bishop takes d4 and queen e3, which Shiva Krishna also mentioned. But I think it's even better to keep these bishops here because the knight on e2 is passive here. It's not really active. It's not doing much. Its only job is to protect the bishop. So we don't want to make it active on d4. So that's why this is a better version for black. Yes, Pavan, queen e3. Yes, that's possible. And now my opponent realized that he had mixed up. He played the move king to h1, and now I played bishop to e7. So you can see how I use this bishop instead of exchanging to remove the queen from this active square, because sometimes white can just play e6 and mate you on g7. So bishop e7 is very important here. And after queen b6, I played the move bishop to b5. Here even better was rook takes c2, and after rook takes d7, rook takes e2, and if the bishop is kind of protected, so you cannot really capture it, and this way black would have been even better. But I played bishop to b5, which is a solid way to play, and after rook b3, queen b4, c3, simply bishop to c5, and now I'm also exchanging queens, guys. Yes, Shiva Krishna, it makes a lot of sense. If it is possible, then of course castling will solve all of black's problems. And now I'm also exchanging queens. Bishop takes c5, queen takes c5, knight d4, queen takes b6, rook takes b6, and now rook f to e8. Here rook b8 was also, I think, slightly better because you kind of exchange this active rook. But I played rook e8, and this is also a great move, I think. After h3, rook takes e5, knight takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and here I played rook to e1 check, king h2. Now guys, here I think there was a better move. I played the move rook to c1, and I kind of just wanted to win the pawn. But I think rook e2 was a better move here. I was low on time. I had very minimal time now because I had to run through all these complicated variations. And here my opponent, if let's say he protects the pawn with a4, you sacrifice a pawn with d4. And let's say he captures rook to c2, putting a lot of pressure on the pawn on g2. Rook g3 is the only move, and now f4, rook g4 and f3, and you can see the pawn is pinned, the pawn is queening, and this is completely lost for white. And this was the way I should have played it, but unfortunately I kind of made a little mistake, and the game kind of ended in a draw. I will show you why it ended in a draw. So I played rook c1, rook takes, and considering this position, I just thought it would be winning because I have 4 pawns here against 2, and I thought this would be winning, but unfortunately this is not really winning, and my opponent managed to make a draw here, and this game lasted for a long while, and we kept playing, but eventually it kind of ended in a draw. But even though I think it was not the opening's fault, I could have simply won with the move rook e2, and this kind of shows how important and how amazing the system is if you want to play for a win as black. And this was a great game against an international master, and this kind of shows you that you can even defeat higher rated players with this. So now guys, we will move on to the different system. Now after you play knight f6, there is also the move bishop to g5. Now you need to be prepared for this because this is kind of another system for white to play, and you need to know what to do here. So in this position, the best move I think is, there are many moves actually. You can of course play something like d takes e4. You can play bishop e7. There are many moves, but what I have really loved playing is bishop to b4, because this again gives you dynamic chances and lot of interesting play here. So now black is trying to kind of, it's similar to, let's say, what Jaikan mentioned with bishop b4 here. So in this case, we've just included these two moves, and now we play the bishop to b4. Pawan, it depends on your style. Let's say if you prefer dynamic positions, sharp positions, tactical positions, then knight to c3 is the best. If you prefer solid positions with a lot of theory where you can kind of try to grind your opponent in the endgame, then knight d2 is best. If you are a player who doesn't really like theory, likes plans more, then e5 is best. But again, then e5 is not really the most critical for black, and everybody knows how to play as black. So it kind of is a trade-off between, let's say, the amount of theory you have to remember, your style, and what is more aggressive. So after knight to c3, knight to f6, bishop g5, bishop to b4. Now this is a game that I played in 2018 in Croatia, and my opponent is I think Manuel and something. I will kind of let you know his name, just a moment. I think I can't really find his name, I think. Okay, I think he was a player from, if I'm not mistaken, from the US, and we played a tournament in Croatia. Yeah, Harshal, it is complicated, but again, this is the French defense, and if the important part is that you will enjoy playing this because it's so tactical, and people who love dynamic play, people like Jaykant, I think, who will really enjoy playing this, and it will be a lot of fun to play. So now here, after bishop b4, e5, now this looks like a logical move, pinning the knight. So h6, and here my opponent played bishop to h4. Bishop d2 is also possible. In this case, you will just capture on c3, pawn takes c3, knight e4, queen g4, king f8, bishop d3, knight d2, king d2, c5, knight f3, takes, and something like, let's say, queen g5, you exchange queens, and this is roughly equal, guys. What we'll focus on is what my opponent played here, and this is something which looks logical to kind of maintain the pin along this knight, and that will be the move bishop to h4. If your opponent captures here, you just capture here, pawn captures, rook g8, and soon you will play queen f6, queen takes g7, and this pawn will be lost, so it's not really a problem for black at all. So now let's say bishop to h4, and now g5 is forced, of course, because you will lose the knight otherwise. And now bishop g3, and now you play knight to e4. So the knight is basically attacking the knight and the bishop. The knight is pinned on c3. So this is the idea. You have weakened yourself a little bit on the king side, but you have kind of created a lot of play, a lot of dynamic play, and next you will play the move c5. So here white plays knight ge2, and you play c5 as you've discussed. This is the most important move in the entire French defense for black, because it targets this important d4 central pawn, and this will give black enough counterplay. Now a3, bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes, and now queen a5, so threatening this pawn on c3. So white defends with queen d2. Now here I played knight c6, and my opponent captured. So the problem is that I am threatening to capture this pawn, and there is no way for white to defend this pawn, so he has to kind of capture on c5, and now just queen to c5. Now we'll try to understand this position, because right now you can see white has the two bishops, but as we discussed, as Shiva Krishna mentioned also, this is a kind of close position. It's not completely open because this pawn is there, and because of that the two bishops are not that strong right now. But if white manages something like c4 in the endgame, then the two bishops will be amazing pieces. So what white wants is to open up the position completely for his bishops, and that's why he plays the move h4. So he has his rook on the h file, and he's threatening to simply capture the pawn because the pawn at h6 will be pinned. So now black has to play rook g8, takes, and now he plays bishop to e2. Pawan, it depends on the variation. In this variation, I think black is kind of looking to castle on the queen side, or even keep his king in the center, but he obviously cannot really castle on the king side now because the rook has moved and there's an open h file. So it depends on the position. Sometimes you will just keep your king in the center, sometimes you will move it to f8, sometimes you will go queen side, sometimes to the king side, and it depends on the variation and how white plays. Because right now, for example, the h file is open, so of course that is out of the question. And if let's say white plays rook b1 and then he kind of pressures b7, then even queen side would not be safe. But as of now, black is kind of going queen side because there is no pressure on the queen side. He will just go now bishop to d7, white played king to f1, and now I just castled. So that was the basic idea, and now you can see how white's rooks are not coordinated but black's rooks are, and that is the advantage black has here. So white here played queen to d3 and rook to h8, and now you can see it's already black who's attacking on the h file. It's not really white. So rook takes, king to g1. And here I played the move rook to d8 because I thought that at some point c4 or d4 will happen. So I need to prepare myself for opening up the d file. But here there is a better move for you guys. So try to find the best move in this position. Yes, Subodhi, you're absolutely correct. For now, black wasn't really thinking about anything for sure. It depends on how white plays. If white had attacked b7 immediately with rook b1, maybe he would not even castle queen side. So it depends on the situation, because white did not pressure the queen side, so black decided to castle on the queen side. And now I played the move rook to d8, but here there is a better move, guys. Try to find it. It's a very interesting moves, and we already discussed how maneuvering is important, how placing your pieces on the best squares is important, and how the h file is actually good for black now. So combining all these elements, try to find the best move for black here. No, the bishop is definitely fianchettoed, Pawan. That is definitely done in a lot of cases. But because here somehow there was not enough time, I think. Because let's say you decide to play b6. Now I will probably, let's say, play rook b1, and I will use this b5 squares somehow. And let's say somehow it's like it's creating some weaknesses, I think, because now there are some issues here. Just a moment. Yeah, so b6. Now I don't like the fact that this diagonal is kind of weak, and maybe I can even play rook h7, kind of attacking this pawn, and maybe I can also play rook b1, so kind of having rook b5 also in the air, and this kind of feels okay for black. But I think bishop d7 is just simple, because you first of all try to make your king safe, and then you worry about remaining of the things. And one more thing, guys, knight a5 is something which black will play at some point, so the bishop will eventually come into play anyway. So you may be wasting time with bishop b6 and bishop b7. So here after castles, this moves, and here it was black to play. Subodhip thinks knight to a5, and that is of course possible, Subodhip. I think that is a solid move. I think white will play queen d4, and something like this is roughly equal, and I think that is a great move. But the best move in this position is queen to f8. Harshal, you can definitely pat yourself on the back, because this is something which would have been amazing. I actually did think about this, but unfortunately I could not work out all the details. And here the idea is queen h6, queen h1 mate, and surprisingly it's very difficult for white to meet this. What I thought that f3 would be possible, but now the idea is knight to e7, and after something like, let's say you play, I don't know, let's say you play a random move, now knight to f5. So basically you control this square, you attack the bishop, and if the bishop goes to f2, queen h6, and you can see how white is getting mated. So this was the idea here, guys. Queen to f8, this very clever move, just to move to the h file and threaten checkmate on h1. Krit, I am not yet sure. Actually, Pernali is having some Unacademy work today. So because so she might stream later tonight, but I am not yet sure about it. So it depends on what time she gets free from that work. Based on that, they may or might not be the stream. So we are not yet sure. Yeah, Krit, knight e7 was the correct move after queen f8. So even though queen f8 was best, rook d8 is not really bad at all. And here my opponent played c4. I played queen takes, and now these two bishops are active. But the problem for white is that the bishop on g3 is a bit passive, because it's blocked by its own pawns. And what white wants is something like f3, bishop f2, and to bring this bishop to e3 and attack this pawn. Now that way he will activate his bishop, and that's why black has to strike immediately. And he plays knight to d4, and white kind of defends the pawn with bishop d3. And now it's your move, guys. It's black to play. This is the concept we have already discussed on a couple of occasions. It's black to play. What do you think is the best move for black here, guys? Black is slightly better, but you cannot give white enough time. So what do you think is the best move here? Yeah, Krit, it was pretty much KO. Even though there might be some defenses, but it was very difficult for white to find them over the board. And I think I would have won the game very quickly had I played queen f6, queen f8 that is. Pavan, I have played the Caro-Kann. Unfortunately, I did not like it too much. And it's because there are a lot of sidelines for white, which kind of make it a bit difficult. And I also don't like the variation with knight c3 and knight f3 for white, where black's king is kind of dancing around without any cover. So that's why I have not really played the Caro-Kann a lot, but I have played it definitely. And I have played a few games. But I think I have had the worst results with Caro-Kann among all the openings. I think there was a slight lag, guys. Do let me know if there was any lag. Okay, so bishop a4 is something what Subhadeep says. But Subhadeep, I think this is definitely possible. But the problem is you cannot really capture on c2 yet, because the king is on c8. So let's say f3. And if you capture this, white captures, this captures, and rook c1. And you can see how the knight is pinned. You can play rook d2, but then bishop e1, rook e2, and here maybe just bishop b4, and now next king f1. So this maybe looks a bit shaky, even though it might be fine, but I think it's a bit complicated somehow. You're placing your knight in a pin. So there's a better move here, guys. Okay, so if your opponent is playing the French, I think this kind of sums it up, because you feel that you should be winning, but somehow black has counterplay. So I think if your opponent is playing the French and you have the white pieces, you should not be scared. That is the number one rule. Just kind of figure out if you have enough dynamic play, and if you figure that you can attack your opponent's king, just go for it. Just lose the fear of loss. I think that is very important to play against the French as white as well. And if you try to, if you're afraid that your opponent is pushing his pawns on the queen side, then you will try to defend. And if you're not attacking on the king side, then it will not end well for you. Bishop c6. Okay, bishop c6 is a normal move, guys. I think this is, of course, a normal move just to kind of open up the rook's file. But white will play f3, and I think this is not so clear, because now the bishop is coming to f2. And guys, this is the topic of piece exchanges. So you have to kind of think, what should black play here? Piece exchanges, guys, because you should know that the two bishops are strong. And if your opponent has the two bishops, it makes a lot of sense to exchange one pair of bishops. Jakrit, it can happen. I think it's only because the games are so complicated that you sometimes might get some nerves and you feel, let's say, very full of adrenaline. But I think it's more to do with the style of the opening, that it's very complicated. I think the more you play, the more your nerves will calm down. I think it's just about playing and playing and playing. I think at first we are all nervous when we kind of play these complicated positions. Our hands start shaking while we are holding the mouse. But I think this will be slowly while you are playing and you play. I think you will get rid of these problems. So here the best move is bishop b5, guys, because I want to exchange one pair of bishops, because my opponent has the two bishops, and also this bishop is the one protecting the pawn on c2, and that way the pawn will also become weak. And that was the idea behind bishop b5. So my opponent played bishop h2, bishop takes, pawn takes, and now knight e2 check, and king f1, knight c3. So I'm controlling the d1 square, and I'm threatening to capture this, and white cannot defend the pawn here. Okay, knight f5 was definitely possible. Yeah, it is possible, I think. Yeah, this is definitely possible, guys. I think you can even follow up with g4, or even bishop c6, and this looks perfectly normal. But I think just bishop b5 is a better move because you're getting rid of the bishop pair, and that is the important thing. Yeah, that was the only move for exchanging pieces, but that was the important element here because white has the two bishops and you have to exchange them. And bishop h2 takes, knight e2, knight c3, and now the d3 pawn is lost. f3, rook takes d3, bishop g1. Finally, the bishop is come into play, but up till now, black has already won a pawn. Now here, I played the move a6. I think b6 was a bit better, but even then, let's say bishop c5, king d7, rook e1, knight d5. The knight is so well placed here on d5, rook e4, king c6, bishop f8, b5, a4, rook d1, king f2. I repeated the moves a couple of times, and now I just played the move rook to b2 and takes, bishop h6. Now, what do you think is the most clear way for black to win this game, guys? White is threatening to capture your pawn on g5. So what do you think is the best way to play here, guys? It's your move. Try to find the best move here. Hello, Akshat. It's nice to meet you today. We are looking at the French defense today. Great. He will be playing. I am not sure yet when, because as I said, Pranali has been very busy for the past 2 days, with 3 days actually with Unacademy. So she will be free tonight, and I will ask her and I will post it on the channel and you will get to know. So when we will be playing with the subscribers. Yeah, so Subhadeep, I'll just answer that question. That is a very good question. So the point is that with a6, I kind of weakened these dark squares. The bishop has a lot of squares it can go to. So as you can see, the bishop went to c5, then f8, then h6, and then here. So it kind of has a lot of squares. Once I play b6, I'm already blocking the bishop's diagonal. Bishop c5 is not possible, bishop d4 is not possible, bishop e3 is not possible. So the bishop is basically kind of stuck on g1, still not doing anything. So that was the idea of b6 instead of a6, and that's why it was a bit better, slightly better, I think. So in this position, I think once we reached here, I asked you what should black play here after bishop h6. Yes, Subhadeep. Akshat, g4 is okay, but I think it doesn't really solve any purpose. I think it would just kind of make, I think it is just transposed to the game after white captures, let's say. So the best move is just to push the pawn, because after all, if this pawn queens, this pawn and all these pawns mean nothing, black is completely winning. So you just have to push the b pawn, and if you manage to queen this pawn, the game is pretty much over. So bishop takes g5, b3. Yes, Shivakrishna, you're also absolutely correct. So rook e1, rook c2, rook c1, and I here just captured the rook, and I played knight c3, king e1, and here you have to find the winning move, guys. There's only one winning move which guarantees black a win, so try to find it. It's very simple, and that was the final move of the game, so try to find it, guys. It's black to play, guys, and you have to find the winning move. It's very simple. Harshal, knight a2 would not do the trick, because I think even though it might still win, because black's king is pretty decent, I think this might still win. But I think the easiest way to win this is just to play knight a4, which Subhadeep suggested. Yes, absolutely correct. You immediately push the pawn before white's king can come to help. And here my opponent just resigned because there's nothing doing. King d2, b2. And this position is of course completely winning for black. And my opponent resigned after I played knight a4. And that way you can understand, guys, this is a very complicated way to play. But on the other hand, you will have some fascinating wins with this. You will completely annihilate white on the queen side. And all you have to do is maybe play a few defensive moves on the king side, defend your king, find the correct moves, and once your king is safe, you saw, guys, once I managed to castle on the king side in the previous game against the international master, And once I managed to castle queenside here in this game, in both cases I started to take over the initiative, and both games I managed to get a huge advantage. So once your king is safe, I think black already has the edge. So this is the main idea here. You push your pawn to e6, then to d5. You push your pawns on the queen side, play c5, and regardless of the variation on how white plays it, then you try to create counterplay on the queen side, and then you try to make your king safe. And if your king is safe, then I think you will have no problems at all. White can try to attack, but if your king is safe, you manage to ward off any attacks, then I think you will have a better game on the queen side in the end game. And of course, remember, its time pressure will always be the factor in the end game more often, and you will have enough time at the start to figure out all the complications in the opening and the middle game, and it will be white who will be facing all the problems in the end game, and that is when both sides will have less time. So that way you will have better practical chances to win the game. Pawan knight a2 also winning, but I think knight a4 is just winning immediately. I think there is nothing to calculate here because you kind of force through with the pawn. So this is just winning on the spot. Pawan, I have played the Scandinavian, and that is a decent opening. However, I think it can only be played as a surprise weapon. You can play it like once in every 10 games or so. If you play it too often, I think your opponents will come up with, prepared with some dynamic ideas. I can show you something on the Scandinavian because I have played a few games, and they can turn out to be very complicated. But I think you can play this as a surprise weapon. For example, I play it once in every 20 games or so. That is how less I play that. So Scandinavian is a surprise weapon, a great surprise weapon, but not really a full-on repertoire kind of opening. As well as the Exiled Dragon, I have not really played that, Pawan, so I cannot really advise you. But as well as I know about the opening theory, I think white is doing very well in those lines. And there are many fascinating games by Kasparov, Karpov and all these games. I have seen a few games in that opening, and even Kramnik. So I think you can play it, but you need to know the theory again. So that is the basic idea. Although I have not personally played the Exiled Dragon, so I cannot recommend you on specific variations, I think. So guys, I hope you learned a bit. So what I'll do is I'm going to show you some variations which might kind of fascinate you a little bit. So we look at those right now, just a moment. Just in the French itself, we'll try to look at some variations. Okay. Okay guys, so we already know that we saw this opening and we saw how I played queen b6. Now there are some other lines as well. For example, white can play a3. Now this way he kind of secures his b2 pawn, because if you capture on b2, knight a4 would trap the queen. So you cannot capture the pawn. But now you play the move bishop c5, and this is absolutely normal. And Caro-Kann French, yes Harshal, Caro-Kann and French have a similar pawn structure. The only difference is that in the Caro-Kann the bishop is out of the pawn chain. That is the better version. However, it does take a lot of time, and sometimes the bishop on f5 can be an attack because of these pawns. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It has its pros and cons. And Dutch, yes, but in the Dutch I think the black pawn is on f5. So that is kind of a bit different, I think. Honey, you can always play d4. I think if you're scared of the theory, if you feel that there's a lot of theory with e4, then you can definitely play one d4 as white if you're wondering for white. I think you can play, and if you need something very safe, I think the London system is a great way, which I have played so many games in. Guys, if somebody can just put down the link for the London system video in the chat, that can help Honey out. So that way she can also check out that video. No, Akshat, there is no forced way to win. I think knight a3 and knight h3 are not, let's say, such a huge mistake that you can win the game. But I think that will be pretty bad, because both the knights will take a lot of time coming into play. And also you can even try to capture the knight sometimes and gain the better pawn structure as well. So it will give you the advantage, but there won't be any forced line to win, I think. So guys, here after a3, bishop c5, one line is knight a4, queen a5, c3, you just take on d4, and now you play b6, and you can see black is perfectly fine here. So another line is if white decides to play knight c b5, and after you play a6, he plays knight c6, a b5, bishop c5, knight c5, knight d4, and bishop d7, and this is another way to play. And now you are trying to push b4, so this is also a decent way for black to play. And you can see how many options there are. So queen d2 was the main move, queen b2, queen a3, queen a, we come here, and now knight c b5 is another move. So in one game we saw knight d b5 where I played queen a5. In one game we saw bishop b5 where I took on d4 and played a6. And here there is another option which is knight c to b5. Yeah, Harshal, London system is pretty good, pretty solid, I think. And in this case, you capture on a2, guys. So after knight c b5, there is no move other than capturing on a2. So even though white is threatening to go here, we are threatening the rook on b1. So now white plays rook b3, and now you play rook b8. So this is the idea, to kind of prevent this fork. And after queen c3, kind of threatening rook a3 sometimes later on, and you play the move queen a5. So you are threatening to exchange queens, and if you manage to exchange queens, I think black is already going on the correct path. Sorry about that, honey. I'm still not sure why the stream is lagging a bit. It is lagging in random times. I don't know why. I'm not so sure why that is happening. I hope it is fine now. I did check something, so hopefully it is fine. So now here white plays knight to c6, queen takes c3, rook takes c3, b takes c6, you're threatening bishop b4, so rook takes c6, a6, and you can see how interesting the system is, bishop a7, and now it's black to play, guys. What do you think is the best move for black here? There's only one move, and this will be the final position I'm going to give you for today. So what do you think is the best move for black here? It's black to play. You can see the rook is attacked, and the rook is also attacking c8, so the rook cannot be moved easily. And if you play rook a8, then knight c7 is an issue. This is all very complicated. Shubhodeep, okay, rook takes b5, but aren't you worried about this? And after here I will capture this. So this unfortunately doesn't work out, and white is winning here. So there is a better move. Try to think a bit deeper. This is a bit difficult, but I think it will be a nice puzzle. Rook b7 doesn't work, Harshal, because of rook takes c8, and white is a piece up for now. So this unfortunately doesn't work. Arif, rook b5 again, rook c8 is the problem, and then bishop takes b5. So this is completely winning for white. Okay, Hani says bishop to b7. Now, let's have a look at this. Now, this does feel possible, but I'm worried about rook c7 here, I think. Yeah, I'm worried about this move because the rook is hanging and the bishop is also tagged. So if now you play ab5, I can just capture here, knight takes and rook takes. I'm threatening this, and this is, I think, much better for white, guys. That is the problem, I think, with bishop b7. But that was a good guess, a good attempt, honey, I think, definitely. So guys, the best move here is a takes b5. So the idea is very clever. So bishop takes b8, of course, knight takes b8, rook takes c8, king d7. So now the rook has to capture, rook takes b8. He can capture rook c3, bishop b4 would be lost. So he can capture rook takes b8, but then you play the move bishop b4 check. and you can capture the rook. So he plays rook takes f8, rook takes f8, bishop b5, and now you can just play king c7 or even king d7 and king e7, sorry. And in this case, the game is just equal. If anything, I think black is slightly better because of the weak pawn on c2, and he can even try to win this. But I think at best it's just equal for white, and at best it's slightly better for black. So that was the nice tactic there, guys. So I think Pawan mentioned bishop to b4, but yeah, this doesn't feel too serious because I have c3, Pawan. So this will still kind of end badly for black. So that was a nice tactic here. You just capture a b5, bishop b8, knight b8, rook c8, king d7, and now because there's a discover attack, regardless of how white captures, we will manage to kind of equalize the game. So that was the stream for today, guys. I hope you learned something about the French defense, and I suggest this for people who like dynamic openings, who like to win as black, who are not really trying to play passive, who like risks, who like dynamic play, and who are ready to kind of bear some sort of kingside attack to have amazing chance later on in the later part of the middle game and the end game, where you will see how white's pawns will be the undoing of his position. So I hope you enjoyed today's stream, guys. And it was a short stream, but I think the French defense is very sharp. So the games end very quickly because it's so tactical that any side kind of manages to make a mistake very quickly. So the games kind of end a bit quicker than normal positions with, let's say, e4, e5. So I hope you enjoyed the stream, guys. You learned something. And maybe Pannali will stream today, guys. I'm not yet sure. We will let you know a few hours prior to that. So guys, take care, keep smiling, and I hope you liked something. And I will see you soon. And before you leave, do like the stream, guys. And if you know somebody who likes the French defense, do share the link with them so that they can also learn a little bit and they can run through the games, because even though the games are specific, the plans and the strategies and the pawn structure is common to almost all of the French defense, and that's why it is very important to learn it. So take care, guys. I'll see you very soon.